Afternoon, everyone. We're just waiting for the numbers to build up. So if you can just bear with me. Thank you everyone for joining so far. We'll start probably in about a minute or two. Some people are still coming in, so we'll just focus on those first. So just to be clear, if you have any questions, there is a Q&A box. There is also a chat box where you can put things in. There will be time at the end for some questions. So if you have any questions, please, I'll be happy to answer them at the end, or potentially after the presentation. You'll have my contact details. So the numbers are still coming in, just waiting for a few more people, and then I think we'll begin. The good news is, from your point of view, is I can't see you. So if you're having your lunch, that's fine. So enjoy your lunch, hopefully, and we'll get started in about a minute. Okay. Well, first of all, thank you for sharing the time to listen to my presentation this afternoon. I want to talk about developing a growth mindset for business, and what is the difference between a growth mindset for us as individuals and a growth mindset for business. Well, first, perhaps I should explain who I am. My name is John Fuggles. I have a corporate background, and I work for small businesses and large corporations, advising them on their growth strategy. Now, growth strategy isn't just run some sales campaigns, employ some salespeople, do some marketing. It is a lot more than that. It is about understanding the performance of the company, the financials, the operational performance. But in all of doing that, I've also noticed that one of the most significant differences in companies that progress and grow well are the people within it, and the attitudes of the management and the staff and the operational people moving the company forward. So what we're going to look at today is what is a growth mindset and how we apply that to the working environment. So in order to develop a growth mindset, we need to understand what is a growth mindset. And we need to go back to about 20 years ago, and a lady by the name of Carol Dweck, who was a lecturer, and she studied students and those who did well in exams and those who suffered. And she identified what she called then at the time a fixed theory of intelligence and an incremental theory of intelligence. And that became her study, and eventually in 2006 she produced a book. Since then she's produced a number of books, and certainly if anyone knows anything about growth mindsets, there's an awful lot been published on it right now. If you want to know more, there are some brilliant books out there. So let's just deal first with what are the 5 key elements of a growth mindset. So the first element that we need to look at is challenges. How do you deal with challenges? Do you see a challenge as an opportunity to learn something new, to do something new, to learn a new skill, or to hone and improve a skill that you already have? Or do you see it as an obstacle? Do you see it as something to avoid? Do you see it as perhaps something to give to someone else? So whatever you see as a challenge is one of your attributes to your growth mindset. So embracing challenge is a key part of it. And how do you deal with obstacles? Are obstacles things to be avoided? Do you find a way to go around them? Do you find a way to remove the obstacle? What is your approach to dealing with problems that are in your way and blocking you from what you want to achieve? Do you try and give it to someone else? Again, a key attribute of a growth mindset. The third of the 5 key attributes on a growth mindset is about effort. Now, here's some marathon runners. My marathon running days were a few years ago now, but I do know that in order to run a marathon, you don't just run a couple of miles and then the next day maybe run another mile more, and so on and so on, until you get to 26 and a bit miles. Effort to run a marathon is a lot more than just running miles. You need to change the types of runs, hill runs, short runs, long runs. You need to work on your strength and conditioning and flexibility. So the effort in just getting to the start line at a marathon is huge. And that's just to get you there. That's before you've even run the race. So what is your attitude to effort? Is it that you just do enough? Or is it that you go that extra mile? What is it you do in order to achieve what it is you want to achieve? How much effort are you willing to put in? And how do you deal with criticism? Now, I particularly like this picture here. It is drawn that way. I haven't cut the head off, don't worry. But this chap is clearly making a point. He's clearly pointing at someone. How do you deal with that? Do you like criticism? Now, criticism can be given in a positive way. It can also be given very negatively, and we try and avoid that if we can. But criticism done well and consumed well, and that's the important thing, moves us forward. If you look at this picture again, he's actually smiling. And that's what you need to look for when you're handling criticism. It's not how pointed it is, how judgmental it is, but what's the intent behind it? And how do you deal with criticism? Do you take it as an opportunity to learn? Or do you see it as someone trying to put you down? And the final element of a growth mindset is understanding the success of others. Oh, something's gone wrong. Bear with me. Just last week, we had SpaceX send an astronaut up into space. And while we were watching the astronauts heading into space and shots of ground control, sort of making sure that everything was going okay, there was one element that perhaps might have escaped a lot of you. Now, the booster rocket on that ship went all the way up, and then it was released to come back down to be reused. And as you watched it come down, and you'll see in the picture there, it landed perfectly, computer controlled, and very, very clever stuff. And that rocket landed pretty much bang in the middle. Now, the people responsible for landing that rocket are a critical and pivotal part of that team. But how do you think they felt when someone said, okay, you're going to be dealing with the team that's responsible for landing the booster rocket back on the ship? Your friends and colleagues, they're going to be responsible for putting the guys up into orbit. Would you feel cheated? Would you feel slighted? Or would you be really happy for them? Dealing with the success of others is a critical part of the growth mindset. And just to be clear, after they docked up in orbit, the first people to ring Elon Musk and congratulate him were obviously various presidents and other people, but Jeff Bezos, Richard Branson, his competitors rang to congratulate him. So what do you do? Do you do that with your competitors? But I hear you saying, but business is different. Well, it's not. It just needs translating. We need to take those 5 skills and translate them into a business environment. But we need also to encourage the individual growth of the people within the business, because a business growth mindset needs the growth of the people to work with it. And you need to provide opportunity for people within your organization to grow. Now, a little while ago, The Independent ran an article where they said that half of the millennials will only stay in a job for about 2 years. I think it was something like 40-something%. But 28% of people, of millennials, will only stay 5 years. Well, why does that matter? Millennials are one group. No, millennials currently count for 50% of the workforce. And the cost of replacing someone who leaves is estimated to be about 1/3 of their salary. So you need to understand what key groups like this need and understand how to retain them and develop them and grow them. And on this next slide, you'll see these are veterans, baby boomers, Generation X, and millennials. I'm not going to tell you which one I am, but I'm definitely not a millennial, let's be sure. But this is what millennials need. They want to know, as it says here, what's next. They want multitasking. They want entrepreneurship. So they want to be given the ability to do new things, to try new things. They want to be given the opportunity to experiment, to learn. Looking further down, they want feedback, constant, regular, positive feedback. Something we mentioned earlier in that chart, where, take the feedback. So they want that, and they want to work with other bright people. Now, bright people tend to stay in organizations where they're given the opportunity to do things, where they're given the opportunity to experiment, to try. So if you want to look after 50% of your workforce, you need to give them the environment to experiment, to learn, and to develop and to grow. And that's for that 50%. The other 50%, you need to give that to them as well, because that is how people flourish. And people flourish in an organization and they stay. There are reasons why people leave their job and reasons why people want to stay. On the left here, we have an article by a Silicon Valley consultancy. Now, I appreciate it's a bit small, it's a bit difficult for you to read, so my apologies for that. But in there, those two items that I've circled, you'll see that 56% of people leave because they're not allowed to grow. They're not allowed to develop. They're not allowed to experiment. They're not allowed to learn. They're not allowed to get better. They're not allowed to do new things. And 39% of people leave because they're not engaged with the organization. They don't feel they have a close relationship with that organization. On the other side, we've got reasons for people to stay. Yes, people want to be paid well, and in the current climate, that may be very challenging, but that is one reason. But it's not just pay that people stay in a company for. People want to be mentored. They want to learn. They want to grow. They also want to be challenged. They want to be given new things to do, new opportunities, and be allowed to fail. And we'll come on to that in a minute. Yes, promotion, money, salary, more responsibility, obviously. But looking at the other thing about the other side of that chart about being engaged, people want to be involved. They want to be part of the decision making. They want to be appreciated and valued. And if you look at the two items in the bottom right-hand corner, they want to be empowered, given the opportunity to do things. And they want to be trusted that you will let them get on with things, and trust you that you can lead the company given the opportunity. So that of the 7 reasons for leaving, 2 really relate to growth. And of the 10 reasons for staying, well, as you can see here, they want to be mentored, challenged, involved. They want to be appreciated and valued. And they want to be empowered and trusted to do other things. So what does that mean for the business? This is what the people want. This is what a growth mindset delivers. The first trait of a growth mindset is agility. What is agility? Changing roles, given opportunities, new tasks. Encourage them to do new things. Encourage them to experiment. Encourage them to try. Give them opportunities. And allow people to fail. We learn more by failing than we do by success. And some of the best successes are actually born out of failure. We all know the Post-it note. Everyone has Post-it notes. I'm sure everyone knows what they are. But that was a monumental failure. Glue, when it sets, becomes brittle. So the theory was, if you have a glue that never sets, it will be incredibly strong. But they developed a glue that never set, strong at all. So they had jars and jars of this stuff, and they didn't know what to do with it. And the people in the labs just would paint it on the back of a piece of paper and stick it on someone's desk. Someone else saw this and thinking, there's a great idea here. And so was born the Post-it notes. But what happened after that was really, really clever. How do you launch a product like that? So 3M took a list of the Fortune 100 companies in the USA, and they got a list of all the executive officers of all those companies. And they sent their executive assistants a pack of Post-it notes. Suddenly everyone wanted them. So sometimes failure can actually deliver amazing results. So allow your people to fail, allow failure, encourage failure, because it's only by experimenting and trying new ways of doing things that we can fail and learn. But here's the thing, fail quick and move on. If you fail, move on. Move on very quickly. The second trait is about responsibility. Do you take responsibility for your actions, good and bad? Do you encourage other people to take responsibility for their role, for what they want to do, for what they want to see in the future, for the changes they want to see? And is it okay in your organization if people fail, they put their hand up and say, yeah, I failed, I'm taking responsibility? Do you encourage that kind of ownership? Now, we're currently in a challenging time, and typically the first thing that goes is learning and development training and coaching, which isn't just about going on a training course for 3 days. Learning and development is reading books, self-learning at home or through work. I know companies where everyone who works there has a book allowance, and they can order books for personal development, for career development, for training, and the company pays. And it's a fantastic thing to see how many people embrace the idea of self-learning and development. But learning and development isn't just books. It isn't just going on training courses. It's about sharing ideas. It's about experimenting. It's about trying things. I want also to talk about trust. Trust is very much a two-way street. You need to trust your team, your staff, the people who work for you. You need to trust that they will do a good job. And they need to trust that you can lead the company going forward. And you need to nurture and grow together as a team and have that reliance and that trust with each other. Now, the final thing is something we've already mentioned, and that's feedback. My computer's playing up, sorry. Feedback is a two-way street, absolutely, but it needs to be positive. Now, sometimes that can be really difficult. Giving positive feedback is not always easy, particularly when the situations are slightly different. But if you, and I'm sure a lot of you have, if you remember the 7 habits of highly effective people, one of the habits there is listen to understand. Not just listen, not just hear, understand. And if you're not clear and you don't understand, ask more. Take the time to investigate and understand, and listen before giving feedback. And give constructive feedback, but take feedback as well. Feedback goes up as well as down, and it goes across your peer group. Be honest as well with feedback. And sometimes positivity and honesty can struggle to work together, but try. These combined are the 5 elements of a growth mindset in a business. Now, if you can work these, then you'll have a growing business, regardless of what else you do. So how do we do this? How do we take this forward? Well, now is the time to act. Four things that we need to do in order to move a company forward in terms of developing a growth mindset. Find those people that are excited about learning new skills, new techniques, about new ideas, about growing what it is they do, about taking on responsibility. Identify them. Identify their ability and their capability. In other words, how much could they do? And get them to be the catalyst that lights the touch paper. Get them to move this forward. Check up the organization. I don't mean a wholesale reorganization. I mean some changes. Give people different roles and responsible functions. Allow people to experiment. Allow people to try. Allow them to develop new skills. And encourage collaboration. At the heart of all this is the culture of the company. Be open to taking risks. You know, back in 1997, there was a famous chess match. Blue played against Kasparov, and Kasparov lost. But when 20 years later a book came out about Deep Blue, Kasparov lost. Well, actually, he would argue he didn't lose, he resigned. And there's a chess thing there about it's better to resign than lose. What actually happened was that Deep Blue made a move that Kasparov just could not get his head around. He just could not understand it. He thought it was some really, really complex strategy. And he just thought, I'm actually now going to quit because the computer has beaten me. 20 years later, a book came out. This is how important it was to IBM at the time. They kept a lid on it. There was a system. There was some coding. The move that the computer made wasn't the one it was supposed to make. But yes, computers don't make errors, they do. But a perfect create a learning culture. Some people are better than others, some people are creative than others, some people just want to stick to their task. They're all different. But be clear that some people will just not be ready for an mindset. So you still need to work with them. You still need to encourage them how to do this. Reward not just what they deliver, but reward the effort. Now, we see that in corporate, very common that children are rewarded for effort as much as for results. It's a very important part of learning. But you do that work. I'm Mr. Fuggles. I hope this has been a useful presentation. Apologies for my laptop details. You are more than welcome to ring me, to message me. I will be at the International Franchise Show today and tomorrow as well online. So if you want to talk on how to grow their business. And a very important part of that strategy is a growth mindset. I hope this has been very, very useful. I'm more than happy now to take questions. We've got about 5 minutes left. So if you want to put something in the Q&A or in the chat box, I'll be more than happy to talk. But thank you very much for listening. And please, I look forward to your questions. Thank you. Aidan, how do you seek out the owners with a growth mindset? If you're talking about going to work for a company with a growth mindset, it is difficult, but there are, you can tell a lot from the interview, the questions people ask, but also in an interview, be sure when you ask, excuse me, when you're there, this is an opportunity for you to learn as well. Interviews are not what they used to be, which is a one-way street of making sure you're a right fit. Interviews are now about a partnership where, are you right for the company? Is the company right for you? So ask the questions. Ask to understand what it is you want to get from them. Ask some of the people in the company. It's not unusual nowadays for people who go for interviews to say, before I leave, could I go and talk to someone who works here? And actually, a lot of bosses really like that. It is difficult to identify what is a growth organization, but asking the right questions is a good way of starting. You can certainly look online. There are various websites that will give you that information as well. But just ask the question. How do you encourage this in partnerships companies, e.g. a franchise? It's an interesting point. So there's a tiered organization there. Is the franchisee open to growth, open to working with the franchisor to mutual benefit? Or is it just down to the individual franchise itself to lead that going forward? It's a partner organization, yes, absolutely. And like anything, it kind of relates back to what I said to Aidan about job interviews. You have to come together. Now, if the owner of the franchise is closed off to that kind of growth attitude, he's saying, no, this is the deal, this is the contract, this is the product or service, this is how it is. You're not going to change them. So you may have to steer your own boat. But if you talk to the franchisee and say to them, actually, there's some cool stuff we can do, we can be creative, and they're open to it, then everyone wins. But again, it's about coming together and discussing and agreeing. Too often I talked about feedback earlier. Feedback isn't just with staff and employees. Right? We take feedback from customers. So why not take feedback from business associates? You also asked about partner companies and organizations. Take feedback from your suppliers as well. Aidan. Okay, Aidan, good question. And it relates to your earlier question. Give me a call afterwards. My details were on the screen. If not, you can certainly find me. My name is John Fuggles, or contact me through this. So yeah, thank you very much for those questions, Aidan. Miguel, how do you think leadership needs to change post-COVID-19? Wow. I think it's become even more important. We are not co-located in an office, very few of us. There was a report I published on LinkedIn yesterday from one of the world's largest insurance companies. And the chief exec estimates that between 30% and 50% of his people will eventually be full-time in the office. That's the world's largest insurance company, and half of his staff are now going to work from home or more. So you need to trust people a lot more. And we talked empowerment. You need to just let them get on with stuff. And if they fail, well, they'll sure let you know. So actually, a growth mindset becomes more important because we may still work for a company, but we're kind of isolated a bit now. And Lucy, how do I let people make mistakes without damaging the brand, company, reputation? How do I learn trust and not police? So failure, okay, let them fail small. Give them something that you think they might. If they fail, that's okay. I'm not saying encourage them to fail, but encourage them that they've learned something, and that's a good thing. There's somebody once said, the harder I practice, the luckier I get. Well, failure is the same. If you let people fail a few times at small things, they're less likely to fail at the big things because they have the confidence with them. And how do you trust and not police? Well, it is difficult. But going back to what the question Miguel asked, people are working from home more, so you have no choice but to trust people. You can't police them. You can't look over their shoulders so much. Even if you're in retail, it's different for your suppliers, and it's going to be different for some of your customers, and it's going to be different for some of the people you work with. Lucy, sorry to say, you kind of don't have any choice. That's how it's going to be. You need to learn to let go. It's a bit like having children. As they get older, they get more independent, and it's a real struggle to let go. It's a real struggle to watch them do things and not want to jump in and help. It's challenging. Thank you. How do you measure effort in order to reward when the outcome is not visible yet? That's an interesting one. So one of my customers at the moment, it's simple stuff, follows the process. There's commissions and rewards and so on and so on. So find ways of measuring it. You can't report on it, and if you can't report on it, then you don't know if it's a success or failure. Now it's 1 o'clock, and I've been told I need to finish. So apologies that I've not been able to ask everyone's questions, but everyone who has asked questions, thank you very much. I'll put up my contact details again so that you can see them should you want to get in contact with me. I hope you found this useful. Much for your time, and good luck growing in 2020. Thank you.